The title of today's talk, our short lecture, is Simple Nutrition for Lifting Stuff. How to not end up skinny fat or fat. Generally, a lot of the advice that you're going to hear or read on the internet is going to be shit as regards to strength training, powerlifting, and nutrition. Things like the Go Mad routine where you do 20 rep squats and drink a gallon of milk a day are vague advice. This is quite specific advice, actually, the result of which are going to be terrible. You're going to get fat. You might get stronger, and you're also going to get fat. And we don't want to get fat. Not unless you want to get fat, in which case, go for it. What I'm going to advocate today is just a simple, straightforward approach. We're going to look at the big picture things that are important to get right, because we're going to assume you're a beginner, so you don't need to go into nuance. Not that anyone needs to go into nuance, but beginners definitely don't. We're just going to nail the simple things, and you're going to get out of your diet what you want, because you're just going to nail the simple things, and that's the important part. First thing, calories in versus calories out. Simply put, if I consume more calories than I expend, I'm going to get fatter or heavier. If I expend more calories than I ingest, I'm going to get smaller or leaner. The nuance of which we're going to go into a little bit, but that's pretty much it as for regards to diet. Calories are king when it comes to weight loss and weight gain. So these two acronyms here, the one on the left, BMR, stands for basal metabolic rate. That's the amount of calories you would burn if you spent the day in bed. So without exercise, work, and any of the rest of it, that's how much you burn. That's based off your height, age, sex, and weight. If you want to get real fancy, you can base it off your lean weight. We're not going to get fancy. And then daily energy expenditure. That's basically taking your BMR and then applying what is called the Harris-Benedict formula. It's basically a multiplier of activity. Really active people will times it by so much. Inactive people will times it by less. It just makes it a bit more applicable to how your lifestyle is. So you need to know roughly, if not exactly, these numbers. If you don't know what these numbers are, you may as well not start, because you're going to go fucking nowhere. You need to know your calorie requirements. Once I know my calorie requirements, I need to know what I'm actually eating. So in today's ages of smartphones, this is a very simple process. You take your Android, iPhone, or heaven forbid your BlackBerry or Windows Phone, and you download MyFitnessPal or a similar food or calorie tracking app, and you just keep a food diary for 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, a month, however long you want to keep the food diary. The longer you keep it, the much better understanding of how your habitual eating habits are. Basically, you eat something, you put it in there. So if I wake up, have a Snickers for breakfast, I'll put the Snickers in the app, and I just do that so I have an understanding of what I'm doing. Once you've kept that food diary for a while, you have an understanding of your eating habits and how much calories you're actually eating, what the content of those calories are as regards to protein, fat, and carbohydrates. And then we can move on to reaching our goals. The main meat of this topic, or the main meat of this talk, is going to be discussing how to figure this out and how to go through applying these guidelines or these numbers. The main thing to keep in mind through the entire process of this is calorie consumption is a slow and accumulative process. If you want to gain muscle mass, it takes a long time. It's going to take years. If you want to get lean, it takes a long time, but not as long. It's going to take months. If you're really fucking fat, it's going to take a couple of years to get lean. If you're a bit fat, it might take a few months to get lean. If you're really lean, it's going to take a few weeks to get leaner. It's cumulative. The more fat you have to burn, the longer it's going to take. The bigger you want to get, the longer it's going to take. Just be at peace with that, and let's get into it. Protein. So we're just going to go through the 3 macronutrients. Protein is the one you probably heard about. It's the one they sell to everyone in powders. If you look at the research based off amino acid tracer studies or nitrogen balance studies, and you look at any review certainly for strength athletes, you'll find that kind of consensus around these numbers. These numbers are from the International Journal of Sports Nutrition off the top of my head. That might be wrong. But it's 1.4 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight a day. So if I weigh 100 kilograms, I'm going to eat 140 to 220 grams of protein a day to meet my requirements as a strength athlete, bodybuilder, or rugby player, or whatever. If you lift weights, this is the kind of sort of amount of protein you should be eating, roughly. If you eat vastly under that or vastly over it, you're either not getting what you want out of your food, or your piss is going to smell like nitrogen, and that's pretty rancid. Protein is used primarily in our context for muscle tissue repair. So when I do bicep curls and fuckloads of bicep curls, I'm causing damage within the biceps. Part of the super compensation of exercise, or part of the adaptation of that exercise, is hypertrophy. So when I repair my muscles, I repair them bigger. Put very basically, that's how it works. Going into a little bit of minutia here, but it's the amino acid synthesis, whether you're in negative synthesis, as in your your turnover, so it's your amino acid turnover, sorry. If you're in negative turnover, that means you're losing amino acids, that means you're losing muscle mass. If you're in balance, then you stay the same. If you're in positive, then you're using amino acids to create muscle or create protein within the muscle cell, which you can infer as building muscle. Basically, if we put this in a practical sense, if I have a 200 gram daily protein intake, if I take that in one swoop, either at the end or the start of the day, my protein synthesis isn't going to be as positive as if I take that same number and eat 25 grams of it. So I have 25 grams every 2 hours. A little bit obsessive, but the hypothesis is if you bear these two strategies out over a 10-15 year period, the frequent dosing of the protein is going to end up in more muscle mass accrued, so you're just going to be bigger. So if you're going to eat the same amount of protein, you're better off spacing it out. You don't have to go 25 grams every 8 hours, because quite frankly that's fucking ridiculous. You can go 5 meals, 4 meals, and just space it out during the day. 25 grams seems to be the optimal intake. It's based off whey protein studies, so it's not based off whole foods, so we can't really say with authority. But if you take 25 grams of whey and 50 grams of whey, the difference between the positive protein synthesis is negligible. So 25 grams seems to be the right amount. Although if you want to eat more, it doesn't matter. If you want to eat less, whatever. Basically, the protein sources are based off your budget and your preference. If you like the taste of protein powder, or you're a cheapskate, that's where you should go for the majority of your protein. If you're big pimpin', spend the G's, and you like the taste of steak, then eat the majority of it filet mignon. That's how you should do it. Eat filet mignon, because that's how you do it. But seriously though, if you want to eat from mainly whole foods, that, my opinion, is a better source. Although if you're going to eat between whole foods and protein powder, it really doesn't fucking matter. Either or, as long as you're hitting your goal amount of protein in the day, you're sweet. Carbohydrates, carbs and protein both make up roughly 4 kilocalories per gram. So 1 gram of protein and 1 gram of carbohydrates worth 4 kilocalories of energy, roughly, not exactly. The carbohydrates used to produce quick energy. Basically, it gets into the bloodstream quicker than fat. It goes into the muscle cell quicker than fat, and it can be used via glycolysis to produce energy for your working muscle cells. So if you're doing activities that last from 30 seconds out to about 10 minutes, or you're doing high intensity repeated intervals, carbohydrates are going to be your primary source of fuel, so you're going to need them. So an example, if you're going to walk, you might use 20% carbohydrate and 80% of fat for energy. If you're going to run at about 80% of cadence, so 80% of your max speed, you might use 80% carbohydrate for energy and 20% of fat for the duration of those runs or walks. So if you're going to do double sessions, so maybe do a conditioning session in the morning and a weight session at night, or vice versa, you're going to want to eat carbohydrate just to replenish the glycogen in the muscle so you have energy for both of those workouts. And carbohydrates don't magically make you fat. Raised insulin, unless it's taken to the extreme that's going to lead to type 2 diabetes, isn't going to make you fat. Is it going to make the small differences down the line? Maybe debatably. But the primary mechanism of getting fatter isn't really carbohydrate intake. As far as the science knows, it's eating too many calories. All good. Fat. Fat is worth 9 calories per gram. It's using a lot of endocrine function, so a common one that gets banded about is testosterone synthesis, which is correct. It's also used within cell repair processes, so your cell membrane is made up of lipids, which is fat, and proteins, which is protons, or amino acids. So it's important for health. Generally, it's recommended you get an equal spread of 10% saturated, 10% unsaturated, 10% polyunsaturated. So I just go for 30% of calorie intake, just to cover those health benefits. And then if you eat a varied, so if you eat animal fats, you eat vegetable fats, and you eat fish fats, you're pretty much going to hit that number anyway, the 10%, 10%, 10%. It'll be up and down on a day-to-day basis, but as long as over an aggregate over time, you're eating an amalgamation or something close within those 10% spread, then you're sweet. And that's just a guideline. It doesn't actually, you don't have to do that. I would say there's still links to excessive saturated fat intake in scientific literature to suggest that it's going to lead to heart problems down the road. Although, so the tide might be turning on that a little bit in some studies. The diet heart hypothesis or cholesterol intake isn't really bearing out over time. There's certainly a lot of critical noise for it in the media. The majority of the scientific opinion still is that large saturated fat intake leads to heart problems down the line. So just don't go fucking mental. 30% fat intake's quite a lot. Should be sweet. If you're getting 100% of your calorie intake via McDonald's, probably got a problem. If you have a McDonald's every now and again, or you have maybe a quarter of your diet's McDonald's, less of a problem. Just exercise some common sense. So let's put it together. Total energy requirement. So I take my BMR times it by my heart's benefit formula to get my energy requirement. Then I take that, I'm going to split up into 30% fat, as we've previously mentioned. That's for health reasons. I'm going to take 25%. That should meet your requirements easily. As we're going to show in the example, I'm going to use me. That ends up being at the high end of that recommendation. Something I would say with this is you only really need to get that high level of protein if you're maybe a large guy on steroids. Otherwise, if you're a natural trainee, even quite a big natural trainee, 15 to 20% is probably about right. 25% is probably a bit much. I wouldn't eat this much. I've just put this down as a number. I fall between about 160 to 180 grams a day. It's probably more 15 to 20%. I think that's a bit more rational. And 45% of carbs. Basically, just take up the remainder of what you've got and make it up with carbs. Just because you got to eat the right amount of calories, or else you're not going to achieve your goal. So I'm 181 centimeters tall. I'm 104 kilograms in weight. So let's see what happens when I put that into a calculator. So my BMR, rounded up, is 2,200 kilocalories. I'm going to times that by 1.55 using the Harris-Benedict formula. I spend a lot of my time in my job on my feet. I train 5 to 6 times a week. Probably more, actually. I probably train 10 to 11 times a week, although 6 of those are lifting, not really a metabolically demanding activity. 3 or 4 of those is swimming, and I suck at swimming, so I'm not really burning any calories there either. I'm just flopping about like a dead fish. So I think 1.55 is about right for me. This is more of a ballpark figure. Once we start getting into the multiplication of the activity, It's a subjective measure, so you might overestimate or underestimate based off what you go for. But we're going to talk about how we're going to dial that in during the process. So for me, that means with this 3,400 kilocalorie maintenance, to stay the same weight, I need to eat 133 grams of fat, 212 grams of protein, and 380 grams of carbohydrate. So what I've done there is to take fat as an example. I've taken my 3,400 calorie daily energy expenditure. I've times that by 30% to get the amount of calories that I need from fat. I divide that by 9 because 1 gram of fat is 9 kilocalories, and that's giving me that 133 gram value that I'm going to use. I've done that same process for all of them, so it's all good. So as long as your percentages are correct, your total energy intake is going to be correct as well, and you only need to go off those gram values. You might have to recalculate it if you change your calorie guidelines. So if your calories go up or down, you're going to have to change these gram values because they're going to rise or fall as your calories go up and down. So what am I eating? Basically, I'm going to take those macros and put them in the meals. So I can either do something like the warrior diet where I eat one time a day. I'm going to eat it all in one go. I'll do intermittent fasting maybe where I fast for 16 hours and eat for 8. That's 2 meals. So I might go 40% for a small meal, 6% for a bigger meal. Doesn't matter. I might just go for 3 square meals and have 3 equally sized meals. I might go for 4 meals a day. I might go for 5 meals a day. I might go for 6 meals a day. I might go fucking apeshit and have 12 meals a day and have fucking Tupperware coming out of my ass. It doesn't matter. If you stick to the macros and you stick to the calories, as long as it's appropriate for your goal, you're fucking sweet. So let's have a look at what we're going to do for my goal. My goal is to gain weight. I'm going to take that 3,400 kilocalorie value. I'm going to add 500 calories to that, and I'm now going to intake 3,900 calories per day. And this is the process. I'm going to weigh myself every morning in a fasted state, butt naked on the same scales every morning. Preferably at the same time, but if you're not a regular riser, it doesn't really matter. As long as you've slept, you're naked, and you're on those scales after you pee and poo, you're going to get yourself a nice, steady, valid measure. I'm going to use that to guide what I'm doing. So first of all, I'm trying to gain weight. So I'm eating 3,900 kilocalories. I'm weighing myself every day. I am gaining weight like fuck. I'm gaining like 2 kilos a week. 3 kilos in, I'm 110 kilos now. I'm looking a bit fat. I'm not really that happy. I'm gaining weight far too quickly. I'm not getting my gains. I'm getting fat as fuck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 3,900 calorie and take it back down to 3,400 calories. And I'm losing a bit of weight. And I'll plateau it out at about 105. I fucked up the equation. But I use this weighing, this daily weighing tool over the period of 2-3 weeks just to see how I'm tracking with it. That's going to keep me on course. So let's say I want to lose weight. I take a 3,400 kilocalorie guideline. So I'm now eating 2,900 calories a day, and I'm losing weight at about a pound a week. Sweet, I'm happy with that. I'm just going to keep going. 8 weeks out, I'm only losing 100 grams a week now, or I'm not losing anything at all. Well, I'm now 99 kilos. I'm eating the maintenance again. I'm going to need to drop that down, so I drop it down another 500 calories and just keep doing that until I'm at where I want to be. If I want to be insanely shreddy, you're going to eat a little amount of calories or do a lot of exercise because your body does not want to get shredded. It sucks. You're going to have to go through a long process or a long, arduous process, and it's boring and it's tedious, but it's just perseverance with calorie deficit, either created through exercise or diet. If you want to get massive, you don't want to really gain like a pound a month. Might be a decent guideline, because muscle comes on really slow. For a beginner, you might want to gain 2-3 pounds a month possibly, but if you weight training for a while, if you can gain a pound a month, you're doing fucking well. Keep at it. I want to stay the same. I just eat my 3,400 calories. My weight stays the same. My activity stays the same. I'm in my weight class. I'm happy. I'm living the dream. So just to wrap up a little bit, we're going to go into a bit of minutia. So I'm not going to go into micronutrients. as far as vitamin C, vitamin D, all that stuff. If you follow the advice that you've been given here and eat a balanced diet or a varied diet, as in you're eating fruits, vegetables, different kinds of meats, different kinds of carb sources, different kinds of fat sources, you don't really need to worry about micronutrients because you're all over that shit. You'll be sweet. Two things we're going to talk about briefly: does nutrient timing and food source matter? Without going into massive amount of detail, no, it doesn't matter. Protein timing, gimmicky, not really borne out through any kind of meaningful evidence. A lot of the data comes from supplement studies done by supplement companies, so not really great. Don't really care about the timing, to be honest. Whenever's convenient. There is no workout window. As soon as you work out, your protein synthesis is raised for 72 hours plus. The workout window is all the time. So as long as you have good dietary habits, you're hitting the nail on the head. Sweet. Food source matter. If you eat organic, do I eat gluten? Do I not eat gluten? For the purposes of this video, I don't give a fuck. Just eat food. Put it in your mouth. Eat enough of it to achieve your goal. Eat less of it to achieve the other goal. Eat the same amount of it to stay the same weight. Hope this video has proved useful for people. I don't want people laying into me, going over minutiae of, oh, you got this wrong, you got that wrong, you got this wrong. Keep your opinion to yourself. That's not really the point of the video. The point of the video is to give a beginner real solid guidelines that they can follow and get where they want to go. And I guarantee you, if you're a beginner and you follow these guidelines the way they're laid out, you will achieve your goals and you'll be happy with your results, as long as you don't train like a fucking retard. I guarantee that. This is Mark Keys at castironstrength.com, signing off. Happy eating, happy lifting. Eating, happy lifting. Eating, happy lifting.